The meowing in the background is the reason I have a mute button. So.
Sonny has an organization called Have a Cat for Humanity.
How many cats do you have, Homer?
Just enough. No, actually, too many.
Too many.
Be careful about that answer. We're
right.
We work with feral cats, Forgotten Felines, it's called, and so we sponsor the cats by bringing them in until somebody adopts them, and then we can't let them go. We just
I know, right?
So yeah. No, we have more than 4 and less than 8.
8. Perfect.
Less than 8.
Right.
We are live.
Hey, everybody, and thank you so much for visiting with us today. It's the first ever virtual Rocket Boys Festival. And although COVID is keeping us at home, it's given us a unique opportunity to bring people to the festival from all over the country. And joining us from Rocket City, USA, the author of the New York Times #1 bestseller, Homer Hickam. Homer, are you there?
I'm here, Burke, and happy to be with you today.
Fantastic. And joining us from somewhere in the wilds of South Carolina, Rocket Boy Roy Lee Cook. Hey, Roy Lee.
Man, I'm just so happy to be here with you. I'm happy to be anywhere.
Just happy to be seen. And we're going to head way out to the West Coast where it's early morning, and somewhere in Los Angeles, actor and cast member from the movie October Sky. Hello, Chad Lindberg.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. It is an absolute honor to be here.
Well, we're honored to have you. And
thank you.
It's hard to believe, Homer, that this book and then the subsequent movie happened over 20 years ago, because every time you turn around, this movie is still on TV or on one of the streaming services, when most movies don't have legs like that. And I wonder, from your vantage point as the guy who wrote the book, what it is about the movie version of your story that has the legs that it does.
Well, first off, it's because Chad Lindberg's in it.
So good answer.
That's probably the most important part.
Thank
right
you.
There. It's true. It's true. I don't know. First place, every substitute teacher in the world shows October Sky. So by the time that kids, graduate from high school, they've seen the movie 3 or 4 or 5 times, probably. I get complaints about that, as a matter of fact. And yeah, it is shown on cable TV, HBO, Showtime. I think it's on Netflix. I know it's on Netflix now. It's just like everywhere. And I don't know, just something about it. In first place, the story is told very, very well in the movie. The writers, the directors, the producers, everybody, the actors, of course, everybody involved with it put together a really good story, and that worked, and it has a good beginning, has a good middle, and it's a good end. As Chad will tell you, the part with movies that mess up sometime is that middle. You can get a good start, you've got a good ending, but that middle doesn't really work, but it does. On October Sky. So we were really, really fortunate. And the Academy Award winner for that year, 1999, was a movie called American Beauty. And American Beauty, yes, it's a good movie, but it had nowhere near the long-term impact that the movie October Sky had, for all those reasons. Again, a great writer, Louis Kulick, a great producer, Chuck Gordon, a great director, Joe Johnston, great actors, that were in it. Those boys who were in it have gone on to have great careers, and everybody associated with that movie has gone on to have great careers. And so, yeah, Roy Lee and I are really, really proud of it. We're still astonished that it got made, but it did, and it just works.
Chad, you played Odell in the movie, and you were just a kid then. You were all, just 20 years ago. I wonder what you remember about the beginnings of that movie. How did you get that part? And take me back in time to your interaction with October Sky.
Yeah, like it was very early on. I had just turned 21. I'm about to be 44 in 3 days. So do the math. I was just fresh. And most of us were, we were all just young kids, especially Jake was like, I think 17 at the time. And I remember auditioning for it, and then they wanted to do a studio test with us. So that was my earliest memory, was going to the studio and being, I think they put the 4 guys that they wanted together first. And because there was a couple of, they had casted Jake, but then there were like a kind of like, a couple different options for Odell and Roy Lee. And I think they would actually cast Chris. So it was kind of like between me and Roy Lee as characters as to like what they were going to do. But they casted the 4 of us, and I was over the moon. It was my first big studio movie as a lead. I couldn't believe it. And then we were off to Tennessee, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where we filmed the movie. And we were there for 3 months. And it was really such a pure, beautiful time. I mean, it was magical. It really was. It was just, there was not a care in the world. We were having so much fun. And then we were blessed to have Homer and Roy Lee and the actual Rocket Boys come to set and hang out with us. I mean, those are some of my best memories. I still have photos of all of us hanging out, and we were all gleaming. And I think one of the most standout days for me was the on the railroad, the train scene. And man, I just love being a part of that film, and I get weepy every time I think about it. Seriously.
Chad, we talked to other actors and actresses who were in that movie, and they tell me that they get asked about that movie an awful lot, more than many others. And I wonder if that happens to you. Is that one of the movies or TV shows that you've appeared in that people come up to you and talk to you about more than others?
All the time. Between that and the Fast and the Furious and Supernatural, October Sky, I can't tell you how many people over the years have come up and said, like Homer was talking about, I watched you in school. We watched you in science class. And it's just awesome that they're using this to teach people. And yeah, I can't tell you how many times. And it's just one of those amazing family movies. And I don't care. There's not a dry eye in a house when that movie ends and you see Chris Cooper put his arm around Jake at the end. Everyone's done. And yeah, it's a classic. And then I can't tell you how much love I get for it still, which is incredible.
Roy Lee, you actually had an opportunity to go onto the set of the movie October Sky. And I would imagine it's got to be really odd for you to see an actor portraying you in something that you did when you were a kid. What's that like? Can you describe what that feeling is?
Yes, if I have a few moments. The scene where my supposed stepfather was abusing me.
Yes, sir.
Comes to mind because first of all, that was the turning point of the movie. Especially relative to Mr. Hickam and the feeling between the whole group. But I'll have to tell you a little aside to that. When they were filming that part of the movie, an assistant director gave me his earphones so I could hear the dialogue. And after about 20 takes, they finally got to the end, I gave the earphones back. And the director, this assistant director, hugged me and said, I know this was a sad time for you, seeing your stepfather beat you like that. And I said, are you kidding me? We're from West Virginia. If my stepfather had beaten me, my mother would have drowned him. But it was an important scene to me, even though it didn't happen like that, because it was so emotional to see anyone being slapped around by an adult person. I think that over the years, in the many places I've been able to go to, I've I've been asked more about that one scene than anything else. And I do think it was an important scene for the movie. But again, being able to hang out with the gang, memories you cannot erase.
Homer, that's interesting that Roy Lee brought that up. Clearly, that's not in the book, and every book and every movie is somewhat different. But as Roy Lee's friend for all those years, what's that conversation like with Roy Lee when you say, "Look, in the people that are making this movie, and I got nothing to do with it, want to put that in the movie," and what was his response to you?
Well, Roy Lee's response actually was they laid it on me to ask Roy Lee if that scene could be shown, and Roy Lee's response, like the response of all the Rocket Boys, was, "If it helps you, Homer, go for it." And that's that was their attitude. And I think Roy Lee understood as I did that scenes in the movie that weren't quite like real life were part of the whole of the movie, and it doesn't have to be exactly like real life. It works for the movie, and it also, with Roy Lee's, with the stepfather beating him up. Well, that happened in the coal fields. That kind of thing happened in the coal fields, and sometimes there were abusive parents. And I think it was good. It was good that Roy Lee let us show that, and that there were other, though what was really important there was other men and women who would stand up and say, "No, that is wrong, and we're going to stop you from doing that." And so that scene, I think, encourages us all that if we have an abusive adult in our life, seek out others and tell them what's going on, and you will get help. And that's a lot of problem with abused young people, is that they keep it to themselves, and you shouldn't. You should let it out. You should let people know.
We're talking with Chad Lindberg, who was Odell in the movie October Sky, along with the real Homer Hickam and the real Roy Lee Cook, central characters in the Universal film. And Chris Ellis, who played Principal Turner, will be joining us a little bit later on. Chad, when you were cast in this part, you were sort of a combination of a couple of different real Rocket Boys. What is the director, for those of us who are not in the movie business, what does the director tell you about how to play this part, and what sort of background information are you given? Do you actually read the book? Do you have notes? Do you get a visit with the real guy that you're playing? What goes into all that?
Yeah, I was a combination of a couple people, and because they wanted, I believe, just to condense it down to 4 Rocket Boys and tell Homer's story. Of course, when we got cast, we all read the book, immediately, and then that you just kind of get a sense of the role, and you kind of put your own flavor into it. And I had a limp in the movie, so I had put in a piece of wood in my shoe so that I can actually portray. Was it Sherman, Homer?
Sherman, yeah.
Yeah, that had polio, correct?
Right.
Yes, and so he walked with a limp. So I had just sort of taken that on, and then it's also the chemistry with the other cast, and we all got along very well. We were having a blast, and then of course when Homer showed up and all the Rocket Boys, it was just done. It was a done deal. But Joe Johnston, the director, he was just so cool, and so just let us kind of find these characters on our own. We hung out a lot, the 4 of us before we started shooting. We went off into the mountains and took pictures and just had fun, got to know each other. We swam a lot in the hotel swimming pool. There was a 24-hour Walmart right next to the hotel. If you couldn't find us there at the hotel, we were at the Walmart just shopping. We were having a blast. So we really knew each other by the time we started rolling. And I think that really helped, just this sort of organic feel. And then it became what it became. Yeah, a classic.
So Chad, you're not from a small town like Oak Ridge, Tennessee. You're from Washington State, as I recall. What was it like to know that the epicenter of your universe for 3 months is the Walmart in Oak Ridge, Tennessee? That must have been a
I
pretty...
loved it. I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I'm also from a small town, but not that quite small. Yeah, we like, and Homer could tell you, we were just we were out all the time at this Walmart, spending our per diem. I remember the studio had given us all PlayStations when we got cast. Like, we walked into our trailers and there's these PlayStations waiting for us, and we were like, "What is happening? What is this?" And we just every day on set was amazing. It was so cool, and the rockets that we were exploding. I mean, all those reactions are real reactions. They would actually blow up these rockets in front of us when we're out there on the what do you call that? What would you call that, Homer?
The slack dump. Yeah, that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's where we were.
That was. I mean, you guys were really brave being out there on that, on all that coal. There was like 1 trillion tons of coal. It's called a slack dump, and we actually built our the real rocket range in the Coalwood slack dump. But that slack dump was like, I don't know, 20 years old, the one in Coalwood, so it didn't stink. But whoa, that one in Oak Ridge, it was fresh coal, and a lot of people got headaches and practically passed out there. And do you remember? I don't know if you were on set when we had a mini tornado go across that.
No,
that was scary.
no.
And also, though, it would you'll see that it in one of the scenes, it's snowing there on the slack dump, and it actually it did snow. And it's like, but it was supposed to be spring. It's like, well, we're going to go with it. It's snowing, So it was a crazy time. And as far as Walmart's concerned, I never hung out there with it, but I understood that a lot of Tennessee high school girls found out about you guys and tended to show up here.
Well,
we were at the
there was
Walmart
a
often.
famous scene in that movie, Chad, where you and the other Rocket Boys had set off a rocket that
Yeah.
There was an assumption that it went astray, and the Big Creek High School Principal Turner, came down pretty hard on you boys. You got all hauled off to jail, and Principal Turner himself, Chris Ellis, is joining us on our October Sky reunion in the virtual Rocket Boys Festival. Hello, Chris. Oh, we see him, but we can't hear him.
Yeah, he's got
Get
his
him unmuted there.
It's muted.
He's sort of like Mr. Turner.
There you
Okay,
go.
now
There
are
he
we
is.
connected now?
We got you.
Phew. This technology, you kids today.
Hey, Chris, we're reminiscing about shooting the movie October Sky based on Homer's book. You came in to play this very stern high school principal. You had lots of scenes with Laura Dern, who played Miss Riley, and I wonder what your recollections are of your time with Laura Dern.
I loved every minute I spent with Laura. She happens to remind me of some old friend. There is that about her which is just goofy enough that I responded warmly to her. But more to the point, Laura and I worked on every scene we had together before we shot. We always worked the day before or a couple of days before. We would get off together and just find the meat of every scene. I don't know if she did that with everybody. Maybe she just did that with me because I was such a weak actor. She needed to grease the wheels for me. But I just had a wonderful time working with her. Plus, at the time, I'm not going to tell that.
Oh, come on.
Oh, all right. We would call Billy Bob Thornton and recite the scene over the phone to him and accept his directorial suggestions.
I love it.
That's amazing.
Maybe I shouldn't let Joe Johnson talk about that.
Now that explains why Laura has an Arkansas accent in the movie Reservation West Virginia.
Now, Homer, you got nearly tossed off the set of a movie that was made about you because of something you and Laura Dern did.
Well, yeah, I'm going to tell that story, but let me first talk about Chris Ellis. Chris Ellis, whether you know it or not, has been in every important space movie ever made. Besides October Sky, he's Apollo 13 and Armageddon and From the Earth to the Moon, and I don't know what all.
There was a codicil in the Screen Actors Guild contract for many years of the 90s that if a movie contained a countdown, I had to be in it. I don't make these rules, I just embrace them.
I believe that.
It's
kind of
sounds a lot like.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Owen. Go ahead.
Now, I was
Yeah,
going
no,
to say,
please.
it's kind of interesting after all these years, if they wanted to have a remake of the movie, Chad can now play my dad, but Chris Ellis could still play Mr. Turner.
October 2.0.
There you go. But in terms of getting kicked off set, it was entirely Laura Dern's fault, not mine, of course. And
Of course.
she wanted a larger role for Miss Riley, and Miss Riley deserved a larger role. And Lewis had kind of written it quite a bit smaller. And then, of course, Laura read the book, and she kept calling me into her trailer and asking me, well, wouldn't Miss Riley actually say this, or wouldn't Miss Riley actually do that? And I'd go, oh yeah, you bet, you know. And then when Laura talked to the director and the producer, she kept saying, well, Homer said. And so they came to me and said, well, Homer said needs to get off the set for a few days. So that's what happened.
Oh, man.
That's amazing.
We have a reunion of October Sky cast members as part of the virtual Rocket Boys Festival. And I want to, you mentioned something that's interesting. And if the folks in the office can put the slide up of Chris Ellis. Now, Chris has done all these space movies, but you've done just a gazillion movies overall. You do something that an awful lot of actors would find interesting, in that you are a character actor who's brought in to fulfill sort of a special role. So you're often cast as this really stern, tough guy. Is that you in real life? Why are you cast as this kind of guy, Chris Ellis?
No, I'm a delicate little rose petal, to be sure. And what I want is I always wanted those kiss the girl parts, but I never could. They wouldn't agree for that. You know, the truth of the matter is, when I started out during the Punic Wars, when I was Chad's age, my theatrical agent said to me, look, you're a little older than most of my young men, so forget this general American, forget this theatrical mid-Atlantic nonsense. We don't want to work you in the theater. We want to put you at work in film and television. My agent was sick. He had AIDS, and he said, look, I've got a short time that I can work here. So let's get you working in parts that you can get. And your Mercutio playing days have come and gone. You are from the South. Act like it. And so when you walk into an audition, snort, do that snort thing, that thing, and speak with a Southern accent. And you're going to be very limited, but you're going to get work. And then I just got stuck doing that.
Well, we're sure glad you got stuck doing that, Chris, because
Yeah.
it is so much fun to always see you on screen. And Chad, too. I see Chad all the time. I go, wait a minute, wasn't that Chad? And he was in Fast and Furious, but he's been in a lot of other movies, too.
Love that.
We've had, you know, the actors that came out of October Sky just seemed like that they all had great careers, some before and I think all after. And so it's good. And it's tough being an actor. I mean, let's don't pretend otherwise. It is really tough. That's a tough profession. You're always having to audition. People are always judging you. And so I hope that I respected actors before I saw the movie being made, but I definitely did after.
Chad, to Homer's point, it is
Yeah.
a tough business, and you started as a young guy. You said, I think you were 21 when you filmed October Sky, transitioned
Yeah.
into many roles as an adult, including Jesse in The Fast and the Furious, which, as you said, lots of people recognize
Yeah.
you for. Talk to me a little bit about that transition from being a child actor to an adult actor, and what that was like for you personally.
I think I was very lucky because I didn't grow up in Hollywood. You know, I grew up in a small town in Washington. You know, I started in high school doing drama, and I realized that I was very good at it. So I started pursuing it in Seattle, and I took it step by step. You know, so for me, I feel like I had a very normal life as a kid. And then, of course, when you go to LA and Hollywood, everything kind of turns upside down, and in a good way, and also in not so good ways sometimes. But I started working right away, and that usually doesn't happen for people. Usually, you struggle for a while, and then you start booking work. For me, it was the opposite. I started booking right away, and so sometimes you don't realize what you have at that age, because you know, here I am getting a studio movie at 21. I'm like, this is how it is. You know? This is amazing. And then over time you realize, like, oh my goodness, like the stakes are really high here. And as now I'm older, I'm like, thank goodness it happened for me. So, you know, and I was able to be a part of like such great movies like this one, or Fast and the Furious, and getting to work with amazing actors. So for myself, I would say I was very lucky that I was not a child actor. I started kind of in high school, and then moved to LA at a, you know, 19. So because I know that transition for child actors can be very hard, and this business is very hard on people. It just is. No matter who you are, no matter it will take a toll, and you have to ride through it.
I saw an interesting documentary, Chad, that you were a part of a few years ago about you and the other young actors that you were roommates with, including Wes Bentley, who's now
Yeah.
one of the leads in the TV show Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. Talk
Yeah.
to me a little bit about that documentary, folks who haven't seen it yet, because I thought it was a fascinating look behind the scenes at what that life is like. And again, that Homer alluded to, that is not an easy life. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. I appreciate that. It was called My Big Break, and now I think the director's going back to kind of redo it because there's so much more story to tell. But basically, it was about the four actors who were living in a house, and we all were at the time. And Homer talked about American Beauty at the beginning of the Zoom call here. Wes was in that, and there was another guy that lived in our house, Brad, and we all started booking work immediately. So, you know, between Wes and I, we had October Sky, American Beauty. We're getting, you know, sent to all these crazy premieres, and we were kids. We had no idea. And then there was another guy in our house, Greg, who kind of represented 90% of Los Angeles, who wasn't working. So you had this dynamic in there, and all of a sudden, you know, we were in a house, the carpets were barely cleaned. I mean, we were like, you know, college kids in a way. You know, I never went to college, but that was kind of my college, was Los Angeles and being on movies and stuff like that. And so, but yeah, the movie shows the highs and then the lows, man. The lows are so, the highs are so incredible and the lows are so incredible. So you have to really sort of try to maintain your sanity through it. And the movie does show kind of what that is like, or what it's really like to be on a red carpet. It can be terrifying. You know what I mean? People don't realize that it's like a jungle. You know what I mean? It's crazy. This business is crazy. So I'm hoping that he will redo it and hopefully put it on Netflix, because it is a movie that's very, it's a teaching tool. I wish I had seen that, you know, before I moved to to California. And then a lot of people watched it and they were like, nope, I'm done. I don't ever want to be an actor. I thought I did, but I don't.
This is the virtual Rocket Boys Festival, and we're broadcasting live on Facebook Live and YouTube. If you have a question for actors Chad Lindberg, Chris Ellis, or Homer Hickam and Roy Lee Cook, by all means, send them in to us, text them our way, and we'll be happy to ask any of these guys any of the questions you have. We have some photos from on set now. And Chad, you had mentioned the day on the railroad tracks, and there you are with some of the other cast members. I want to get Chris Ellis's feedback on this as a guy who works just a ton in all these different movies with all these different people. When you work with this group of young people, Chris, did you see Jake Gyllenhaal, who's gone on to have a huge career? Did you see anything about him that made you say, here's a guy that's destined for superstardom?
Oh, all these guys, to me, looked like their mother's milk was barely out of them when I walked up. And that was probably true. They were just above infant level, and so I thought, oh my, I am the senior member of this company. I probably was. And within the first scene, I felt like every one of them was carrying me. I never had any notion while we were working that there was anything other than green about these young actors. They were absolutely as competent as any cast I ever worked with. And I saw greatness in every one of them. And I've rejoiced. I've seen one or two of these kids over the years, and especially Jake. I've loved watching him on screen. And I just saw him in a restaurant one time, and I greeted him like somebody whose kid has just come home from college. I had an avuncular feeling about all these guys. They all were superb. The movie was brilliantly cast, and every one of them was a joy to work with.
Well, I gotta return that right back at you, Chris, because my memories of you, that you have the best sense of humor and kept us laughing all day, and your professionalism, like,
I wasn't
seriously.
kidding.
We had a blast working with you.
Yeah, if I can chime in about Chris, is that when I watched the movie, a highlight of the movie for me is Chris doesn't have any dialogue. He stands up after we won the county science fair, and you can see him go from being very stern to pleased at what has happened, and it's just that facial expression changes there, and it's like, bam, now you know what this story is about right there.
Homer, let me tell you where that came from. I have my late father never knew or cared anything about the arts. He was a gentleman of the soil, but every time I ever appeared on a stage in local theater, in high school, college, and community theater, there would my daddy be front and center. And that expression on his face is that which I tried to emulate in that particular scene. Every time I was in a movie, people that I went to high school with would call me and say, I was in a movie theater, and when you came on the screen, your daddy was in the theaters going, that's my boy. And I hope everybody has that source of encouragement and nurture in their lives. I was always so grateful for that. My daddy never knew what was going on, but he certainly was impressed by it. And I thought of my daddy when I did that. I know the very scene you're talking about.
It worked.
And I saw that when I saw the movie. I saw that's my daddy. But in this love fest, let me throw in a line about Homer. My late father-in-law was professor of engineering at MIT. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Homer, before, I think I've told Burke, my late father-in-law specialized in astrophysics. He was on the team, started out in the 60s. He was on the team that developed the Cobra helicopter. And then he was involved in the shuttle program, not in the early days of NASA, but by the time the shuttle came along, he was instrumental in building it. He went to Alabama. He met Homer one time. And when I did a couple of space-related movies, and he was, he got it. But when I did October Sky, he was over the moon because he himself had met Homer. Homer won't remember Ren Miller, but Ren Miller remembered him to the last hour of his life. And October Sky was his favorite movie because it had that yes, I can notion to it. And my own father-in-law had achieved all his dreams. My father-in-law was born in a world in which the Wright brothers had just flown. And he died at a time when we had landed on the moon and were regularly sending people into space on the shuttle. So he had seen a great arc in his life. He's had a great sense of validation and accomplishment. But few things in his life were more thrilling than seeing October Sky and to sit at the dinner table with somebody who had worked with Homer Hickam.
Thank you, Chris. That's a beautiful memory. I appreciate
I love
that.
that.
I really do. It makes my day.
We're talking with Homer Hickam, Roy Lee Cook, Chad Lindberg, and Chris Ellis, part of the virtual Rocket Boys Festival. And Homer wrote a short story about the behind-the-scenes shenanigans of October Sky, and you can pick that up at homerhickam.com/bookshop, along with Homer's other books. He'll be happy to sign those for you. And we are taking questions from folks, and they're starting to pour in now from our Facebook Live viewers and YouTube viewers. And I'll ask Roy Lee this first one, and that is, what did the movie makers of October Sky get right, and maybe what did they get wrong about the story in Coalwood?
What they got right was the very essence of Coalwood. Yes, the weather was sometimes dark, and we had snow in April, and sometimes it looked bleak. But the energy of the people of Coalwood, the desire to be the best there was, and put that into us, they got that right in the movie. What was wrong? Yeah, we know the little things were wrong. 4 boys or 6 boys can't pick up a railroad rail. That was wrong. And I never knowingly shot my car. I
Knowingly, he says.
I had a sports car break down on me on Independence Avenue in Washington, D.C., and I got it, and it just happened to be a 2x4, and then I whacked my car with the 2x4, but I never shot one. So there were the little things that, and they're unimportant things that they got wrong. Frankly, when Sonny told me that they were making a movie of it, I didn't believe him. And when they had a sneak preview in Columbia, South Carolina, I couldn't get in because it was packed. And a good friend of mine, a doctor, went back to the theater and said, "We need another sneak preview so at least he can see the movie." And it was after that I got to go to the premiere. And I was always glad I got to go to that first one, because I got my tears out there instead of at the premiere when everyone cried in the movie theater. But they got it right. They got our spirit from Coalwood.
Chad Lindberg, here's a question for you. Is there something special that you learned from making the movie?
Well, that's a good question. It was a huge formative time for me. And like I said, I was 21 and it was my first big studio film. I learned so much from being on that film. But my biggest takeaway obviously is what it became, how it's touched people, my relationships with Homer and you guys. And I we, what was a couple years, I don't know, gosh, time flies, but the last Rocket Boys festival I was at, we had the premiere, or we had a screening, and then we were doing a Q&A afterwards, and I couldn't stop crying. I could not stop bawling. And it just moves me every time. And I'm so grateful. So my biggest takeaway is just all of it and what it still brings to me, that we're still able to sit here and I'm able to laugh with you guys. And oh man, it means everything to me.
Here's a question for Chris Ellis from the cast of October Sky. Jenny asks, what was your favorite October Sky movie experience? Can you remember a favorite experience from being there, either on the set or subsequent, Chris?
The G-rated ones would include everything G-rated on that movie. Here's what I formed a friendship that lasted with one of the extras until we were separated by death. There was a woman who was a local. We shot in East Tennessee. And there was a woman from that region who was assigned to be the secretary to Principal Skinner. That's Principal Turner. Skinner. Principal Turner. I make that slip once in a while.
Yeah.
Principal Turner had a secretary who appeared in a couple of scenes with him. And I made the friendship of this woman, Carolyn Hensley, who unfortunately died several years after we finished the movie. But when I think of that movie, I think of two things, and she is one. I formed a really lovely friendship that lasted for the rest of her life, and with her family thereafter. But here's my favorite recollection. It's not from being on the set, not from a particular moment that we had while working. Though I can tell you that being on a movie set, Chad, I think, can back me up on this. No matter how many times you've been to the rodeo, being on a movie set, you take a minute and look around and say, this is the culmination of my deepest heart's desire.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted all my life. And I've tried to take a moment to acknowledge that and be grateful for it every time I've been on a movie set. But here's what the abiding memory is for me from October Sky. Many years later, I still meet people, well, not this year, not since I've been stuck in my home.
Yeah.
But I meet people on airplanes and 7-Eleven, and anywhere. And this is the movie that parents come up to me and talk about. This is the movie that we got for our child because it tells our child you can do anything that you choose to do. And I'm so grateful that I got to be a part of that, and that people are still talking about that movie. There are one or two movies in my career that sort of have legs. And this is one for all the wonderful reasons. I've never been in a movie that my children could not see when they were toddlers and when they were in elementary school. And this is one that apparently all the parents in airplanes and 7-Elevens want their kids to see. And I was so blessed that I got to be a part of that.
It's pretty special. And
100%.
Homer, you and I have talked about how movies can really go sideways for an author. And it's got to be somewhat nerve-wracking for you as the guy who not only wrote the book, but this is your story, to have it, to a certain extent, be out of your control. So although there were some things that certainly I'm sure you didn't agree with, at the end of the day, when you look back on it now, are you pretty satisfied with that movie?
Oh, I absolutely love the movie. And again, it was beautifully written by Louis Kulick and beautifully directed by Joe Johnston, and very lovingly created by Chuck Gordon, who had to fight Universal Studios a lot to get it made.
Yeah.
And I have to say that the Universal, God love them. I mean, it's a great studio, obviously, but they weren't sure about this movie, and so Chuck had to really work hard to get it made. And then they dropped it in kind of the Deadpool area time frame in February. That's generally where they send movies to die, and so it made the money back pretty quick. But where it really got its legs, where it really got going, was after the theatrical run, when it started coming out, and the DVDs, and then every teacher in the world started showing it, and that's when it really got going. And it's never really stopped after.
Yeah,
that. So,
still going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still going. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's on Netflix now. It's just everywhere. And so, of course, as an author, the only thing that I didn't like was that they changed the name. It is an anagram. If you take the letters of Rocket Boys and move them around, it spells out October Sky. But no author wants the movie made out of his book to not have the same title. So I told Chuck when he decided he was going to change the name, that for the rest of my life, I'm going to have to say, yeah, I'm the author of Rocket Boys, October Sky. and that's been true.
And it's kind of played out that way. Oh man! All right,
But that's
here's
a great
a
icebreaker. When you tell people that October Sky is an anagram of the phrase Rocket Boys, when they realize that,
Yeah.
they are always very impressed. And I
Yeah.
throw in the line that I'm the guy who made the anagram.
never
Is
let the
that
truth get in
true?
the way of a good story. Homer, here's
I'm
a
always
viewer
just happy
question.
that I remember the word anagram. I feel like that. Okay.
Right.
Go here.
Exactly.
All right, here's a viewer question for Homer. Homer, how much were the actors who played your parents in the movie like your real parents?
Oh, well, that's great. Chris Cooper played my dad beautifully. And I might say that I had a great relationship with all the actors on set except for Chris. And that's because Chris, he stayed in character. He really did not want to talk to me. And I got that after a while, and so he did a wonderful job of playing, they called him John in the movie, but the real name was Homer. And Natalie Canaday, of course, now her part, if you look at it, she didn't have that many lines, and it's really kind of a small part, but she made as much of it as she possibly could with her mannerisms, and she steals every scene that she's in. It's interesting. I watch her now and go, let me see how you steal this scene, Natalie. And she does. It's interesting that my mom came to set, and she met Natalie, and they talked. And my mom, after a while, she got comfortable with Natalie. She said, I would have really preferred Kathy Bates in this part.
Wow.
and Natalie came to me later and said, I now know how to play your mom.
That's funny. That is funny.
So we're doing this virtually this year because of COVID, and that's made it tough for folks in the Hollywood business. But there was a time when the October Sky Festival happened in person, and thousands of folks would come into Southern West Virginia, including NASA astronauts and cast members. Both Chad and Chris have come in for October Sky Festivals. And Chad, I wonder what your recollection was of your time at the real non-virtual October Sky Festival. What are your memories of that?
Oh, nothing but amazing good times. I mean, you guys brought me out and I was doing, TV interviews and all kinds of fun stuff. I had such a blast. And then to come out there and hang out with Homer and all of you, and then the thousands of people that showed up and absolutely love this movie, and we lit off rockets that day. You can't put words on what that means, you know what I mean? And that here we are 20 years later, or how many years later, and people are still talking about it, they still love it. And we were doing just events and cool things that day. I wish we could do it in person again. It was just so much love. That's always going to be my takeaway from this, is just love. So much love.
I want to come back. I hope I outlive this plague for a number of reasons. And one that I would love to come back to this actual festival one more time. The autumn leaves stand out in my recollection. And chatting with Roy Lee, that was the first time I really got to hang out with Roy Lee.
It's a
And
wonder
the
they
food-
didn't both get cuffed and
Yeah.
led away by the state of West Virginia police there. Roy Lee and Chris Ellis together, that could go all kinds of wrong.
Yeah, well, one of the things I want to say about the cast of the movie and coming to West Virginia, as I have told them all that have come to the festival, if you ever get totally down and out, somehow get yourself to West Virginia, knock on any door and say, I was in that movie, October Sky, and you will be taken in. They probably put you up in the Greenbrier for the rest of your life. You could live there.
I don't know.
Because they love you. I mean, they really do, man. They just love you.
And I do notice a spike when I go over there. I do notice that a lot of people will be like October Sky. It's really fascinating,
Oh, they treated us like the
Oh,
risen
yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
You guys were both really, really loved. My memory of Chris, it's a tiring day. It's a long day. I'm standing, I don't sit down. I stand and sign books all day long, because if I sit down, people want their picture with me. So I have to just stand up. And so I just
Exactly.
stand up.
Yeah.
And it actually does, it wears me out. I have to be nice all day. This is hard for me.
Ah,
And so I can remember we were driving after it was over, and Chris was in the car with me, and one of the helpers was there, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he had his son with him, and he was saying, "Oh, Mr. Hickam, do you mind if me and my son?" And his son was very talkative, could sit with you at the table, and I was going, And Chris said, "Yes, of course he can sit at your table." It's like, oh, gosh, Chris, you have to remind me. Yeah, okay, you're right, absolutely right. Yes. So.
Well, we're almost out of time for this session. Chad and Chris, thank you for both rolling out early this morning
Oh,
in
thank you.
California to be with us today. And I want to leave you both with the last word about October Sky and the opportunity to be a part of this story. And Chad, we'll start with you.
Like I was saying, I mean, I still get to come out and hang out with Homer and Roy Lee, and I got to see Chris. I haven't seen Chris in ages. I mean, I'm still a part of this movie. I'm still, people are still being touched by it and inspired by it. I mean, Homer, your story is inspiring. You still inspire me, and because you followed your dreams, my dreams came true. It's absolutely a fact. You know what I mean? It's I have goosebumps. So I mean, hopefully we'll be able to do this again and again. I don't care if it's virtual. I just love being a part of it and seeing you guys. And thank you to everybody watching and the fans. I mean, the fans that just keep this movie going. So I'm blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad, and happy
Yeah.
early birthday, Chad. Celebrating.
Thank
just a
you.
couple of
Appreciate
days.
that. Thank you.
Chris, what about you? You have the last word on the movie and the October Sky experience.
Ooh, I better make it valedictory. October Sky, as I said before, is one of the highlights of my career. And I'm like Chad, it's a chicken skin moment when I think about this movie. It was such a blessing to be a part of this project. And it is abiding. It is a continuing blessing. Plus, you get to walk to the mailbox for a living.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. It's our virtual Rocket Boys Festival as we wrap up this section on the making of the movie October Sky. Special thanks to actors Chad Lindberg, played Sherman Odell, and Principal Turner Chris Ellis, also for Roy Lee Cook and Homer Hickam. I'm Burke Allen. Thanks for watching. Up next in the festival, a writer's workshop with Homer and other best-selling authors. Thanks for watching wherever you are. Go out and make it a great day. Bye.